Well, hello, everyone, and welcome here to Bedford. It's the FNLNH Lacrosse Show, presented by the New Hampshire Tomahawks. Nick Anastas, Chris Cameron with you. A lot to get into over the next hour and a half or so. The return of lacrosse, statewide, boys and girls, took place this week, so there's a lot to get to. Jerry Hawley of Exeter is the first man up at 9:15. The head coach will join us over the phone. Then Roger Sampson at the bottom of the hour of Londonderry. Our New Hampshire Tomahawks Player of the Week is BG senior Michael Kiley. He'll be live in studio at 9:45. 10 o'clock, we switch it over to the girls' side with Christine Hodgson of the Bedford Bulldogs, and then we close out the show by looking ahead at our broadcast schedule. Coach, good to be back in the chair with you. How are you?
It's great to be back, Nick. Great to be back Tuesday on the field. You guys calling the game, and now back in the studio.
Now, what was that like? First actual NHIAA action, at least in 2 years. That must have been quite a moment.
Yeah, it was. For the kids, it was special for the kids because there was still, even though there was just so much uncertainty whether there was going to be a season, what kind of season, and I kept kind of encouraging that there's going to be a season, be ready, and our kids, they were ready. I mean, they were certainly ready. A lot of kids coming back. Just being out in the field is just what the kids need. Was
there that kind of, I guess it was excitement overall, but any jitters on their part? It didn't look like it. We were there, obviously. We'll talk about the game in a moment, but I don't know. Summarize, I guess, the opening minutes of the season.
So jitters, yes, for the sophomores, because the sophomores never had a high school season. So this is their first time playing varsity lacrosse, and there were a handful of sophomores, but we have so many seniors that they've been through this, and they played at high levels for a long time, and they were just ready to play. They weren't nerves at all.
Right. Take me back, I guess even before that, the last year or so, when this lockdown first came in. A quote you had off air was, "It's just brutal on all levels," and it kind of trickled down. Obviously, the pandemic aside, it's tough to stay engaged when you can't meet, you can't practice, you can't quite get a feel for what's around the corner. But how did you kind of steer the ship, both with BG and the Tomahawks, really through this COVID-19 lockdown?
Yeah, so I could go on for a while on that one. So I'll
take your time.
So when it all came down, I'm an eternal optimist. So I thought that it was going to be a 2-week shutdown and we were going to be playing. Jeff Collins from the NHIAA was talking about, what we're going to do whatever we can. We're going to do a home and home. We'll have an open tournament. So I was encouraging my kids, just say, keep playing, stay active. There's going to be a season. And all of a sudden, when that call came down, that that once you kind of got the feel. I mean, when the ultimate call said that the season's not happening, we kind of knew at that point it was coming. So it was definitely discouraging for me in my house. My son Sean being a senior year, and we had a loaded team. Personally at BG, we had probably the most talented team we were ever going to have on the field on paper. So it was tough. This year everything we do is times two. For the seniors, and we're just trying to enjoy it. Our challenge this year, then moving on to Tomahawks, we had 800 players play over the summer with no issues. And then we moved on to the fall with 650 kids and no issues. The outdoor transmission is just not a factor. So it's just great. I mean, the emails and the support that we got from families, how important it was for their children to be lined up a home and home with Darien and New Canaan, Connecticut, because I knew that the Connecticut teams didn't have New York teams to play, so they were all for it. And then they weren't able to play out of state, and I knew Massachusetts wasn't going to be able to happen. So that's our challenge right now, and not just for us, but we'll talk to Jerry Hawley because he's got a great team coming back. Exeter is loaded with a terrific senior class led by Connor Hawley and Spencer Clark, and they got some great players. So the 21 class is very strong throughout the state, and kids are just excited to play. But Exeter needs out-of-state competition. Pinkerton needs out-of-state competition.
I didn't even think about that, Coach, as well. The lacrosse is a little bit different. You're allowed to get, I guess, a little more liberal with the schedule, play out-of-state teams. You don't necessarily see that in other sports. I didn't even think by state COVID-19 policies obviously have been a factor and continue to be a factor as you look to set the schedule.
Oh, yeah. It was. I mean, I started this back in just seeing what was happening down south of us with Massachusetts. The 6 games that we play, back in 2007, I knew that we had something building, and we got to play teams out of state. We
Right.
got to challenge ourselves. And then since it's been great for us, play teams out of state. We
Right.
got to challenge ourselves. And then since it's been great for us, our 2018 team went 6-0 out of state, beating the likes of Zavarian and BC High and Duxbury. And that's how we kind of gauge our success more than, as much as winning. But that's what prepares you and gets you better. And then, Jerry's done that at Exeter.
We've seen other teams adopt that style.
Pinkerton
sure.
has done it. So that's what makes. that's what makes you better. Is those challenges, because it's tough. Getting anyone else to play us in the state was tough. No one wanted to play us 3 times, and no one in basketball. See, in basketball, there's so much more parity. It's not an issue where you can go and get games.
Plus, there's more teams. Period.
There's more teams. There's more teams.
More programs,
that are
yep.
not. It's not so much top heavy. Obviously Exeter was they were the top team, but they got upset. But they still had some competitive games along the way. For us, that's going to be a challenge. There's just some teams that are not at the level, and you see that early. You see kids in programs that put the work in that year, the COVID year, and it's the kids that did and the kids that didn't, and you could see it makes a big difference.
Kind of like a did you do your homework type of thing.
Exactly.
New Hampshire, it's the FNLNH Lacrosse show here, presented by the New Hampshire Tomahawks. Again, we got Coach Hawley coming up. Exeter off to a good start at 2-0. Let's talk a little bit about what happened on the field this week. You guys 2-0, no problem with Londonderry home and home. You opened up with a road win. We broadcasted that game, obviously, back on Tuesday, a 19-11 final, and then you guys took care of business yet again on your home field. Tell me about this group you've got with BG. You mentioned it's senior heavy. We'll talk to Michael Kiley, our Tomahawks Player of the Week, when he comes down here in a few minutes. But assess this group really and compare them perhaps to some teams potentially that you've had in the past.
Yeah, so where to start? So, one of our Achilles heels, for years, we've started back in 2006 with Eric Harries being a dominant faceoff guy, Matt Bain, Blake Bedreau, Jack McNow, and Christian Trahan. And then we kind of had a little gap where, we were struggling to faceoffs. But this year I think we have the best faceoff guy in New Hampshire, probably one of the best in New England.
Junior James Murphy.
Yep, James Murphy committed to Bryant. So we're solid there. Defensively is the best defensive crew that we've had since 2012, which was Bob Fahey and Kyle Carrasco. That were All-Americans that were 4-year players at UMass. So we're deep there. We have Aiden Ahern going to Villanova, just long, 6'2", 6'3". John Sullivan, who basketball player committed to West Point, another 6'2", 6'3". Matt Craney, 6'4", which is very long. And then our fourth pole is Nick Dahl, who hasn't committed yet, but he's a potential Division I. So we're very big, long, and athletic defensively, where we can 10-man ride and just get after people and pressure. And the goal, it's a unique situation I've never had before, where we have 6 goalies in the program. Mm-hmm. We have one goalie in JV who's a solid goalie, in Avery Reed, and then we have 5 goalies on varsity. That 1 through 5 is so close. It's close. For years we would have 1, maybe 2 as a backup. In 2014, I played quarters with Paul Callahan and Jake Somberg, but these guys it's a challenge. It's like kind of having 5 quarterbacks. It's like sometimes you have 2 quarterbacks. It's not good. You want to have
great
one.
Problem to have.
It is a problem to have. So we have to get these kids playing time, get them experience, and just be fair to them, and they know what's going on. So Zach Connerty's been our starter, sophomore, and then we have Dylan Stewart, a senior, is the 2, and then we have 2 freshmen, and
Connerty seems like a big kid too, right? Just because for a sophomore.
Big kid, he's worked hard. That's kind of the trend now. Is the bigger goalie's taking up space, and he's getting better. And then offensively, we have middies. I could throw 3 midi lines out there all day long, led by Michael Kiley, Chris Heitmill, and Nick McGovern. And then I have a sophomore midi line. And then our attack is Dawson Clark is dynamic. He's one of the top players in New England. He
put on a show the other night.
He had 6
Tuesday.
goals in the first half against Londonderry. He's just a shooter, lefty, righty. And then complemented by 2 other seniors, John Kokorian, who's committed to Trinity. He had a highlight. He had a kind of a goal that on your broadcast on Tuesday, a backhanded
over the shoulder, right?
Kind of and then he did another one on Thursday night against Londonderry with a dive over the shoulder that's been going viral. And then we have Declan Wilkie, who's a lefty, and then we have some depth there, and Aiden Lorendo and
the freshman played pretty well.
Freshman
right?
Brady Dumont had 2 goals. Yeah, so we definitely have some depth, but it's a complete team. We got to continue to push ourselves and get better because Exeter's good and Pinkerton's good.
Yeah, let's get to the rest of D1, and I guess it starts there with Pinkerton, obviously the defending champs, and then Exeter, a lot of hype around them. They've delivered on that hype with 2 big wins over Nashua South. Are they the next in line, so to speak? Is that the top tier, BG, Exeter, Pinkerton,
those
yet
three,
again?
Those 3 are the top tier, and then I'd say Londonderry's 4, South is 5, Bedford 6. Those teams are 4, 5, 6. Seeing Sohegan play, they obviously have a superstar in Riley Lohorn, as our producer Ben Beals was saying, was a man among boys.
Right.
And he
looked good Friday.
He's going to UMass Lowell. He had Big Ten offers to Rutgers. He's just a different level athlete on that field. So Derryfield didn't match up athletically, but from an IQ, but more than anything was their skill set. Sohegan just doesn't seem that their skill set is there around Riley yet, but they're athletic. They'll be able to stay in a lot of games. But Londonderry, I know you see those scores. It's gonna be like, oh, they're gonna have a tough.
But
year.
they have athletes.
They got some athletes.
They do.
Their kids. I know the percentages weren't there facing off, but I think they have 2 good face-off kids. They have solid D and Robbie Durhack and Evan Parker, and then they're good. I mean, they're going to be better than people think. So I think they're a solid 4. But Exeter has Spencer Clark, Jerry Holly. Their question mark is, and Jerry will probably say it, is Spencer Clark was taking face-offs. I mean, you can't. I mean, he's their guy. I mean, he's up there with Dawson Clark as being the 2 top offensive guys in the state.
And he may be one of the best all-around athletes in the state.
Oh yeah, great
as well.
Great football player.
Yeah.
He's committed to Bryant. He had options with Penn State. He had some Big Ten teams were going after him, but he settled in on Bryant. And he faces off. He plays 2 ways, and that could wear you down. And that's going to be. What we're going to have to do is just trying to wear him out with throwing John Sullivan, throwing Aiden Ahern at him. And then, Connor Holly, who's going to Clarkson, he's a dynamic scorer. He's not big, but he's shifty, quick, highly skilled. So and then they have a lot of guys. This 21 class, Coach Holly had these guys, because Connor's a senior, his son, he took this class all the way through. So they're a senior-heavy team. Face-offs and goalies, how they develop there and is going to be the key to how they match up with us and Pinkerton.
Well, it's a perfect time to bring him in, isn't it? Jerry Hawley of Exeter on the other side as we continue with our season debut of the FNLNH Lacrosse Show presented by the New Hampshire Tomahawks. Back to Bedford in just a moment. It's the FNLNH Lacrosse Show presented by the New Hampshire Tomahawks. We're live every Sunday, 9 a.m. from here until the end of lacrosse season. Nick Anastas with you, Chris Cameron. To my right, let's bring in Exeter head coach Jerry Hawley. He's got quite the squad this year. They're 2-0 out of the gate, and he joins us now on the show. Coach, congratulations on the hot start, and welcome inside the FNLNH Lacrosse show. How are you?
Good. Thanks, Nick. Thanks for having me on this morning.
Hey, thank you. Coach just praised your group, senior heavy, it seems. You've got a lot of things invested, a lot of emotion invested with your son on the team, his classmates, etc. And you guys really got a lot of chatter, frankly, in the offseason, considered one of the contenders in D1. You come right out of the gate with big smashing wins over Nashua South to go 2-0. Is this the start you envisioned, and how special do you think this group can be when it's all said and done?
I think, we were hoping for a start like this, obviously to be 2-0. I think there's a lot of things certainly that we're still trying to figure out. Wise trying to always get better. They are a really tight-knit senior group. A lot of these guys have been playing together since 5th, 6th grade. And, practices are fun. They're really up-tempo. And, the guys are really pushing each other. And it's, really fun to be a part of it right now.
Tell me a little bit about the offseason. Obviously, no lacrosse last year. Coach said basically your players have to do your homework. They got to put in the work on their own, unsupervised, and just kind of get ready, take the responsibility to get ready for this season. You feel like you got a mature group that was able to handle that, Coach, as we navigated and continue to navigate these kind of unprecedented waters in 2021?
Yeah, I thought they were great. They were playing a lot more than I even knew they were. And, I realized when, I went looking for a cage and my son had taken it, and I think he brought it down to the old high school, and I was pretty much there the entire off season. So, they've been working hard, and obviously playing on Sundays over in Bedford is always a great experience. And we also picked up playing over in York on Tuesday nights, which was kind of beneficial for us as well. So, they're focused. They have their eyes, setting on competing for a state championship, and, they're just working hard to get there.
Have you seen the expectations under your reign kind of increase year by year? It seemed like you've been on that kind of short list of so-called contenders for a while, but a trip to the semis, if I remember correctly, back in 2019, you had a promising season then. Has this been kind of a momentum-building program under your guidance the last few years?
I'd say it's been pretty consistent. I try not to play too much into, the high expectations year to year. We know when we have good teams, and when we feel like we can make a little damage and compete. And, it's just that level of consistency I think we had. This year, just that large senior group, I think just gives us that, little extra push this year, more so than in other years.
Tell me a little bit about Spencer Clark and the face-off X. I know that's one thing Coach was highlighting. Is that an ideal situation for you? Is that maybe a little too much on his plate, or how do you think that situation plays out?
Right now we're rotating guys through. Spencer's the type of kid where, he's a competitor and he's going to compete no matter what. He just wants to win. But we've got other guys taking him, and it's something that we're working on, especially on our wing play, trying to improve that. In Exeter, we very rarely get just a Fogo, like some of these other schools are fortunate to have. So, we have to rely on our guys to be, versatile and go out there and make plays and do whatever they can to help the team. And pretty much they've been doing that. We had Bryce Sturdivant taking a lot of our face-offs against South. He's relatively new, but he's, really athletic, physical kid. So we're trying to get him as many reps as we can in practices, trying to get him, more familiar with being in the game. But right now Spencer's probably our best guy with, Jackson Hale and Connor Holly, Hayden Lechner. We're just kind of rotating guys through. It's not ideal, but, this is what we got, and so we have to work with.
Coach, thanks for coming on. So that's That's a lot of guys you throw. Did you get a chance to watch Sohegan Derryfield on Friday night on the FNL broadcast?
I didn't get a chance to watch that Friday night. I mean,
you could still dial. Well, what do I think is, I was just going to lead into how you're going to handle Riley Lawhorn, because you've coached him for 5 years now, so you know what kind of special player he is. Coach Bertrand had him starting on attack. Yeah. Saw him on the wings, saw him with a long pole in his hand, a little bit of everything. So I think Londonderry is probably 6-8 goals better than Sohegan, but I think Coach Bertrand will get Sohegan better by the end of the year, because he has some athletes that just don't have the skill set. So you guys, Connor Holly and Aiden Drunzik, tell us a little bit about them, where you have them playing this year, and because sometimes when Spencer Clark gets all the headlines, you got two great players with Connor, certainly an All-American candidate, and then Aiden Drunzik, a commit to UMass. So where are they fitting into the system right now?
Yeah, I mean, Aiden primarily is playing, he's playing most of the attack at this point. And Connor is kind of very versatile in a sense, as we're trying to figure out how we're gonna put him in the best places for the team. One thing about him is, and that we've noticed, is he's really become a very good feeder. And, having him work from behind the net certainly, I think, makes our team a lot better, especially with a lot of guys who can finish up top. So we're just working out the kinks right now. So he's kind of switching back and forth. He's mostly played midi at this point. He'll probably get a couple more runs of attack on Tuesday, and we'll see how that develops. But in terms of Riley Lawhorn, he's a phenomenal player. I mean, he's probably one of the best athletes in the state of New Hampshire. He's just physical specimen. So depending on where they have him, we'll just try to make some adjustments on what we want to do to try to keep the ball out of his stick as much as possible, and just try to make other people beat us.
Yeah, so you play them twice. You play at Sohegan and at
this week
at your place. Yes,
coming up.
That's his game coming up. So one of the things I learned and noticed during coaching basketball this year is that the opening game, North's season was delayed a little bit, and they beat Alvern their first game by 35 points. 2 nights later, they come and play, and Alvern beats them by 20-plus points. So, how are you going to approach that mindset when you have these 2 game sets? And we saw a little bit of that with Concord losing to Bedford 20-8, and then coming back and losing only 4-3. And you saw a little bit of that with Timberlane Winnicunnet. It was an 11-goal game, and then it went into a triple overtime game. So, do you have, and anything I can learn from you? I'm gonna listen and learn. Is how are you gonna approach those 2 game sets?
Yeah, it's definitely something that's new. And really all we did last week with South is, as soon as the game was over, we started watching film. We started breaking down, things that we needed to work on. And last week I think was a little bit different. I mean, we played 2 games in how long. So not to say that they were looked at as scrimmages, but it was almost still trying to figure out what we have in a way. So that's why the film was so important, and, having guys learn and what can we do better? Where can we improve? I think that's kind of an advantage because, I like to watch film, and, I know a lot of my guys are on Huddle, and they spend a lot of time watching it, and we have a lot of conversations, with some of the older guys on things they saw, on the field, things we all saw on the film, and, and how do we want to attack people in different ways? What works, what doesn't work. I know you're not really a huge film guy.
No, I'm not, but I'm. But it makes it easy with these. I go on to YouTube and I can watch these FNL games. It makes it pretty easy.
There you go.
I know that is the thing. You can see everybody play, but it's kind of like all of a sudden it's like 11 o'clock at night and I'm sitting up watching games. It's kind of.
Yeah,
I got to get to bed.
So tell us a little bit about South. I mean, I know Ethan Johnson. We communicated after your game. Congratulations, on the win. And then you said he got hurt in pregame warmups. Is that what happened? Ethan Johnson's the goalie. Yeah. He's the goalie for South. One of the top, probably 3 goalies in the state.
Yeah, he's that's something that's going to hurt them for sure. I think South's got a really nice team. They got a lot of guys that are athletic who can move the ball. They got some really quality finishers. Not to say that they're underrated, but I wouldn't be surprised if they make some noise. And hopefully Ethan can get back. Really, I mean, he played a really great game against us the first time. And I really feel bad for him and the program if he's not going to be able to get out there again. They've just I feel like they've come a long way and, really can do some things this year if he's somehow getting back in the field.
Yeah, South got their feet underneath them with a win over Timberlane, 8-7 after suffering back-to-back defeats out of the gate, Coach.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm looking at your schedule, and the NHIAA website was great last year when you would have standings and scores updated, complete schedules, but now with kind of the not having standings and going to a open format, they're not keeping those as much. So the schedule, I don't know how accurate it is, but fortunately for you, I'm seeing you finish with Pinkerton and Bedford in two-game sets, which will keep you guys sharp. Were you able to secure any out-of-state games or any games that aren't showing up on the schedule?
No, not at all. I know the website's been a little bit wonky. I mean, I don't even think it shows that we're playing you guys at all currently.
No, yeah, May 3rd and May 6th is what I have on.
Yeah, right. I mean, I know I have them circled, but it's just not listed on the site for some reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
right.
So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see kind of how it all develops. I'm not really a big fan of that open format. For the tournament, obviously, with Exeter basketball program, playing Winnicott at round one, which were arguably two of the better teams. Congrats to BG. But I wish they could still, in lacrosse, it's not regional the way it is in other sports. So there should have been no reason why they couldn't keep the same format, because a lot of the teams didn't play each other anyway. And so many of us were playing out-of-state teams, and that kind of got squashed this year. So really, the format I don't think needed to change at all in terms of the system, but maybe they just wanted to mainstream it.
How is that how it's going to work? Because it was based on geography for basketball with the open tournament. Is that how it's planned right now, Coach?
I totally agree with Coach Holly. I just don't look what hockey did. Hockey got it right. They had the four best teams in the semifinals. They had Bedford, Concord, Salem. Of course, I'm drawing a blank.
BG, right?
BG, yeah, and they got it right. They seeded. And basketball, Exeter, you have to beat somebody at some point, but it's tough for Exeter basketball to have to beat Winnicott four times. Four times. It's just it was stacked against them. So Jerry and I, we have a great relationship. We talked about playing a third time because it would have been a great game for both teams. But when you play each other a fourth time, it's just, sometimes that just leads to a lot of, on the field, a lot of chippiness. When you watch these hockey playoff series, when you're playing the Game 7, it just gets chippy, and there's a lot of respect, mutual respect for both programs. We decided we weren't going to do it. It's just I don't understand why they couldn't, because you could have Exeter and Pinkerton playing in the first round if they do a complete random draw. And lacrosse is so top-heavy where you have the top three teams, and then there's a drop-off to Londonderry at 4 and South at 5, my unofficial.
Right. I guess we'll talk more about that as we get closer to the tournament, but you're right. There could potentially be something like that kind of turns everything upside down. So in the meantime, go ahead, Coach.
I was saying, hopefully, the committee, gets it right. I think they understand lacrosse in New Hampshire, and, hopefully they're having these conversations and really thinking about how, they can make it work, a little bit better than it has in some of the other sports.
Right. All right, Coach, final question before we let you go. Again, relating to the short term this week, coming up, Souhegan, you're on the road, and then you got them at home on Tuesday, Thursday, I believe. Obviously, besides the wins, what are you looking for or your group to accomplish this week against the Sabres?
We want to play. I want my team to play faster right now. I think we're still playing a little bit slow, and I wouldn't say deliberate. But in the first game versus South, we were very much just one-on-one dodge heavy, and then I think in the second game versus South, we improved on that, where we were looking to dodge not just to score, but to also move the ball and get more other people involved. So we want to dodge fast. We want to get to the cage and transition and really get guys up to speed, because as soon as you go play a team like Pinkerton or BG, I mean the whole level of the game changes, and we just want our guys to be ready for that and be prepared for that.
All right. Well, good luck, Coach, and we'll talk to you down the road. We appreciate you coming on. Thanks again.
Yeah, you got it. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thank you.
Good luck to you, Cam.
Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you. Again, Jerry Hawley, Exeter head coach, Blue Hawks 2-0, facing Souhegan this week in a home and home. All right, quick quick break. Roger Sampson of Londonderry is on the other side. I think he's on the practice field right now, putting in work for the Lancers. He's going to take a break and join us on the phone, though. You are watching FNLNH Lacrosse. It's the FNLNH Lacrosse show, and it's presented by the New Hampshire Tomahawks. Back in just a moment. It's the FNLNH Lacrosse show presented by the New Hampshire Tomahawks here on Friday Night Lights, New Hampshire. Nick Anastas with Chris Cameron. We're live every Sunday morning at 9 a.m. from here on out until mid-June, until this thing is wrapped up. So tune in. If you can't watch it live, you can catch the archives on our YouTube channel, FNLNH Media. We thank Jerry Hawley of Exeter for jumping on with us. We will talk with Tomahawks Player of the Week, Michael Kiley of BG. He'll join us live in studio in about 10 minutes or so. And then Christine Hodgson, Bedford girls head coach, will kick off hour number 2. But right now, joining us on the phone from Londonderry is Londonderry Lancer head coach Roger Sampson. Roger, good morning.
Good morning, Nick. How are you?
We are good.
Chris?
Good morning. Good morning, Coach.
Good morning, Coach. Tell us a little bit about this season and how really you've had to deal with COVID-19 related issues that has limited your practice time to get ready for the season. How difficult of a challenge has that been for you and your staff?
Well, it hasn't just been that. tragically, we lost our captain, Jake Narr,
Right.
in an awful car crash. And he was very close with a lot of these boys. And so not only are we dealing with the loss of Jake and going through the grieving process, but then we got COVID. One of the boys got COVID, and we were shut down for 10 days. So we're getting hit with a left and a right and having to deal with all kinds of obstacles. And certainly Jake's passing is not an obstacle. It's just an awful, awful tragedy. And it's going to take a long time for Londonderry and the community to get over that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's go ahead.
Yeah. But for us, as far as preparing, I mean, we are a 10-day quarantine. I had a double session on Saturday after the quarantine, a single session on Sunday, a walkthrough on Monday, and then we played BG. And that's really not enough practice time to compete against anyone, let alone Bishop Girton, because the powerhouse team, they always bring it, and it's always a tough competition, and we hang for a little bit, but then we can't sustain. So for us this year, opening up at BG, maybe it's a blessing in disguise. I don't really know. But our expectation here is that we're going to get these boys ready and do everything we can to get them ready and prepare them for some sound lacrosse games and some tough competition and go into battle and give it our best shot. And you can't ask for more than that.
Right. Coach, to continue with the Jacob Narr tragedy, it seems like it has been a rallying cry in a lot of ways for the town itself. You've seen the town of Londonderry really, I think, step up and raise awareness and honor his memory, really statewide or town-wide. Is that the feeling you get, not just as a member, as a head of the program, the lacrosse program, but as a member of the community itself? Has this been or could serve as potentially something that brings the town together, rallying in the face of a tragedy like that?
Well, the town of Londonderry, this community on the whole, they have just been outstanding. It's incredible the amount of support they've given the Narr family and all the students that are grieving here. It wasn't just, we've had two tragedies. We lost a guidance counselor a month before we lost Jake. So it's been very difficult here. But the community on the whole, they're tremendous. Reggie Narr himself said the community here has lifted us to this high pinnacle and surrounded us with all kinds of love. And they have. And the signs are all over the place. I love Londonderry, and I love the people in this town, and they're just amazing people. And for them to do and to what they've done and to support Jake and our boys has just been tremendous. And we're not going to, after something like this happens, generally people go about their lives and get back to normalcy, and then they forget about the family. But this lacrosse program is not going to forget about the Narr family. We are going to spend time with them all through the season. So that's going to be our part as a lacrosse team to support them. So I'm just so proud of Londonderry. Londonderry is an amazing town. And Katie Sullivan, who's our AP here and who was also the AP for Jake Narr, has done a tremendous job supporting that family and galvanizing the community together, along with Jason Parent and a lot of other parents that their boys grew up with Jake. So it's been fantastic in that regard. Everybody's come together, and I couldn't be more proud.
Okay, so Roger, I was certainly impressed with the way your players handled themselves on opening day. And to answer your question, is it going to be a blessing? I think it is. I think getting those two games out of the way and getting better from that. I have you guys clearly as the fourth best team in the state and getting better and able to compete with the top three. You guys played hard from start to finish, where you guys were just that fourth quarter in the first game, the kids were the kids were supporting each other, and they were celebrating on the sideline. It was a 1-goal game, and then the same thing. They had a lot of energy on the bench, which speaks volumes to you as a coach, having them believe themselves. But I mean, from Robbie Durhack and Evan Parker on defense to Fawcett at in the middle of the field, and then you guys have. And I thought your faceoff guys are pretty good. Tell us a little bit about those two. Were you rotating 2 guys? Do you have 2 faceoff guys?
We have 3, but one of them had an extended quarantine, so he couldn't participate in either game. But Alex Grosso, he's a strong boy and a good athlete. When he was younger, I think 8th grade, he broke his leg, and that has hampered him some. But we found a spot for him. He loves doing face-offs. Now he's going against number 20, and that kid's amazing. He's probably the best face-off kid in the state. But he hung with him for a while, and Jesse Morin, who's a junior, also took some time.
Yeah, I thought Jesse was great.
Yeah.
Jesse played great, overall. I mean, you have a lot of poles. I mean, you have poles, and you got, your goalie saw. For the most part, it was the 1 goal. He saw a lot of rubber in the first game and a half. So I think he's got size. He's got some ability. He when he stays tall in there. So you definitely have what it takes to compete. And I know you're gonna get them better.
Well, Nick, it's a matter of putting all the pieces together. Tim Bro is doing a great job in goal, and it's you get a little shell shocked, you get depressed and disappointed, and so our job as coaches is to keep lifting them up and keep telling them they're doing great, not your fault, doing the best you can. I said, we have Merrimack coming up, and that's going to be. Hopefully, we've put everything all together. We've learned a lot from playing BG. Both games with BG, so we're now in the process of fixing those things. Hunter Smith, my attackman, and Cole Duart and Isaac McCune together, they are of one mind. They work very well together. So I'm hoping that cements, and we can score a lot of goals with that. The middies, Zach Fawcett's done a terrific job, but Aiden Dennis, Aiden O'Loughlin, who's going to Chad, Jack Hester, and a few of the others boys there. DeFranzo, who's a fast little cat and just loves to play the game. So we have a lot of talent at the midi section. We just don't have a lot of them. We don't have 4 midi lines, so that's kind of difficult for us. And other teams can do that. We can't.
So was that your message at halftime? Because at the when you guys came out late, was it you just encouraging them?
Well, they were getting frustrated, Nick, and you know how when boys things aren't going their way and they see drop balls and turnovers and missed ground balls, they get frustrated. So. And they get on each other a little bit, so we pull them off to the side, especially Zach Fawcett, my captain. It's just putting too much of a burden on himself. We just want him to play the game and lead his fellow players, his classmates, and don't shoulder this burden and just go out and play hard and do the best you can, and we'll get better. We will get better. And the message to them has been, we're behind the 8 ball. We were quarantined for 10 days. You know this, so we're rusty. We haven't played in 2 years, so we have a lot of work to do, fellas. So let's just keep grinding. We have to keep grinding.
Good a message as any, I think. Coach, thank you very much. We appreciate it, and we look forward to talking with you again down the road, and good luck certainly this week against the Tomahawks. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
Bye.
Again, that's Roger Sampson, head coach of the Londonderry Lancers. Coming up, the New Hampshire Tomahawks Player of the Week, BG senior Michael Kiley, joins us live in the Beals Insurance Studios. In just a moment, you're watching the FNLNH Lacrosse Show presented by the New Hampshire Tomahawks. Back here on the FNLNH Lacrosse Show. Nick Anastas, Chris Cameron with you. Our New Hampshire Tomahawks Player of the Week is BG Senior Michael Kiley. And here he is in studio.
Yeah,
Michael,
thank you for having me on.
Thanks for coming down.
Happy to be here.
So I guess I'll ask you the same question I asked Coach. What was it like Tuesday when you're finally back on the field after nearly a 2-year absence?
Oh, it was great to be back on the field with the team after the long 2 years of missing out on what would have been a great season the year before. So the boys were ready to go. Everyone was excited and wanted to play hard, like we know we could. And then we came out, played well, and got the victory. So,
as one of the seniors during the off season, did you take it upon yourself to kind of, I don't know if police is the right word, but make sure that your teammates, some of the younger teammates particularly, were doing what they needed to do to get ready for this season? Was that a responsibility you felt like you needed as one of the senior leaders needed to have?
Yeah, well, me and my the other senior leaders on the team, we tried to get the boys with their stick in their hand as much as possible, like encouraging them to go to the indoor league. And then Thursday skills we ran. So we wanted to get the boys ready for the season because we wanted to make it the best we could without having last year. So, yeah, we really got on the guys, tried to make them play as much as we could so we could be as good as we possibly could this year.
He did a job on my nets up at Joppa. I have a walking, Nick being from Bedford, and Ben, we got a lot of Bedford people right here. You got Ben Beals back there. So I walked down Joppa and up Joppa.
Yep.
And Michael's out there with the crew every single day during the pandemic, just
That's
shooting,
right.
Having groups, and they were just working to get better. They were the ones that the haves versus the have-nots, and it certainly paid off for him in the opening game.
Well, it showed on the field for sure. In a big week, the first 2 games combined, you had 7 goals. Is that your role on the team? Are you the goal scorer? I mean, I'm sure that someone would have something to say about that.
I try to do more than
Mr. Clark, but you certainly looked like a man amongst boys at time, to borrow Ben's phrase, over the course of the first 2 games.
Yeah, well, I try to do my job on both sides of the field. Like I try to play defense too, and
Good answer, Coach.
Get on the wings for the face-offs too, just to just work hard, get the ball for a team. So I try to do stuff on all sides of the field. And then I wouldn't say I'm just a goal scorer. I try to like beat my guy and then move it, draw a slide, so we get a better look. But if I beat my guy and have a shot, then I'll take it.
Fire away, right?
He's developed into a goal scorer, Nick. He was like the prototypical glue guy, the guy that plays the wings, plays defense, transition guy. Not an offensive force by any means. His sophomore year, just a guy that did the little things for us. And then you saw it during the course of the summer. They were playing in the NAL, which is like the biggest tournament of the summer. They're playing in the semifinals versus Long Island Express, and he pumped in 6 goals. And then I'm like, whoa, this is really starting to happen for him. And the 7 goals he had was really he played half the game in the first half, first Londonderry, and about 2.5 quarters. So he's
off to a great start for sure. Tell me a little bit about the family dynamic. Correct me if I'm wrong, the middle brother, right, of 3?
Yeah, the younger brother. Yeah, it's great to play with them. We've always played together, like with hockey. We've been on the same team before. But
now your older brother again is Chris.
Yeah,
your younger
Chris.
brother Tim, right?
And but this is like the first time we've ever played together in lacrosse, and it's great to play with them because we like know each other and know what we can do. So like if one of us is having not a great day, we can like encourage each other, and we learn off each other because he's small, but he's one of the quickest like guys I know. So I try to try to mirror his quickness. He's also a really hard worker. He's always with a stick in his hand, or he's always like working out or doing something. So. And
then your older brother, of course, Chris, is at Siena as well, right? Did he get you started way back in the day? Or
no, it was actually my dad, because
okay.
my dad, he played in college. He walked on. He played at Siena too, but as soon as we could like walk, he was giving us a stick. I remember I was playing when I was like 4 years old, and
that's early.
We can't forget about the youngest sister, probably the best, Madeline, his youngest sister, who's a 2025 8th grader at Lergio, who's probably going to be the star of the family.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. She's going to be tough. She's going to be tough playing with us. I wouldn't say we like beat her up or anything, but like we're hard on her. Like we'll make sure she's like running hard or like doing her best.
Hold her accountable, yeah. Good stuff. Again, Michael Kiley at BG joining us here in studio. Now, you've already committed to Colgate, and that's kind of a return-to-home type of scenario for you, being originally from upstate New York, right?
Yeah, it is. That's part of the reason I chose it, because it felt like it was close to where I used to live, and also I can go there like before I get dropped off or get picked up, or on my way home, I can like see my friends, or it just felt like I was kind of going home in a way.
So you still got a lot of relationships.
Yeah,
with
I still
there.
talk to a lot of my friends from there, so it was nice to be near them. And a bunch of them are actually going to Cornell, so they'll be close. And I think Colgate usually plays Cornell, so maybe they can show up to some of the games and I can see them again.
Right.
But yeah,
So you did your freshman year at Ithaca.
At
right?
Ithaca High School, yeah.
Okay.
Good stuff. This year, this group, again, after you mentioned it yourself, you guys felt like you had a good senior class last year. The season didn't get played. Unfinished business in a lot of ways this season in honor of those guys who didn't get a chance.
We're definitely playing for those guys who didn't get the year last year. And then we want to like remember those guys by doing well this year and winning for not just ourselves but them too after missing out on last year. So yeah, we're definitely remembering those guys and unfinished business for them.
Coach, you got anything for your star here?
I don't. I think we covered it all. I mean, he was a great, hockey. They came up a little bit short. Michael plays hockey.
Still a great run, though.
Yeah,
good run.
Semifinals, and he's off to a great start. I'm sure he's as excited as me for practice tonight and getting ready for Pinkerton this week 2 times.
Yeah, how about that rivalry with Pinkerton? Is that always something that's scheduled on the calendar, I'd imagine?
We always remember the date for it and look forward to it.
Well, we'll be there on Thursday in Derry, so best of luck moving forward, and thanks for coming down. We appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. That's, again, Michael Kiley of Bishop Girton, the New Hampshire Tomahawks Player of the Week, 7 goals in the first week of action against Londonderry. All right, we will talk girls lacrosse with Bedford head coach Christine Hodgson on the other side. Hour number 2 awaits. It's the FNLNH Lacrosse Show, and it's presented by the New Hampshire Tomahawks. Well, hour number 2 here on the FNLNH Lacrosse Show, presented by the New Hampshire Tomahawks. Nick Anastas, BG head coach Chris Cameron here in studio. We're live every Sunday at 9 a.m. If you can't watch it live, you can always watch it on replay. And that's on our YouTube channel. Archives available at FNLNH Media, again on YouTube at FNLNH Media. We welcome in Christine Hodgdon, the Bedford girls head coach, a veteran of this show, and back on for the first time in 2 years. Coach, congratulations on the return of lacrosse, and we appreciate you carving out a couple minutes for us here this morning. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Good start for your team. 2-0 against 2 quality wins against a good Souhegan program. Is this the ideal start that you were hoping for?
Of course. I mean, to come out in our first week with a shortened preseason is definitely something that, we're proud of at this point, especially with such a young squad and not a lot of game time reps. I feel really proud and fortunate that we were able to have the outcome that we've had.
You mentioned a young squad, Coach. Tell me a little bit about this group and compare it perhaps to some of the groups you've had, because traditionally you've had a strong senior class, strong upperclassmen. Is this a different scenario this year?
It's a different scenario in which, we have such raw talent, and you can tell from some of our younger players how well they utilize that time off and elevating their individual games. I mean, they came in so strong with their own, skill sets. The challenge with that raw athlete and, such a strong skill set individually and having limited, high school game time reps or none, chemistry is definitely something that we're going to have to expedite and get, quickly on board in order to compete later in the season.
Seems like the theme of this morning has been that the players over the course of the COVID-19 lockdown situation have kind of grabbed the bull by the horns. They put in a lot of individual work. They've kind of organized amongst themselves as players. At least that seems to be the case with several teams on the boys' side. Is that something you've seen with your girls as well?
Yes, I mean, absolutely. I mean, watching, some of the younger players that are now freshmen and sophomores and seeing how much they've elevated, their individual game over the last year has been tremendous. And even noticing on the Souhegan side, they have some kids on their end that also have put in the work. You can just tell that, they're eager to play. All the younger players and even the upperclassmen, they're like wild stallions, getting let out of into the pasture.
Right. I'm sure. A dog off its leash, so to speak, with everybody cooped up, pent out, a lot of energy ready to be released. You mentioned the ongoing chemistry building process that I guess typically takes place anyway, at least early in the season, but is obviously under a bigger microscope now after a year or so away. Is that something that as a coach or your coaching staff can help build, or is that something that just has to come organically from the players themselves, the chemistry part?
Well, I think it's twofold. I think, as a head coach, you have a certain vision and philosophies in your program, and you need to, instill those philosophies in your kids. And I think the one unfortunate part is not having all of my, underclassmen now have that modeling and that mentoring last year. I really have really young returners at this point. I mean, having only 2 returners, 2 starters is definitely a deficit in our program and something that we haven't seen in years past. But similarly, like we've had teams earlier in my career at Bedford where, our younger players were called on and counted on to do all the jobs and we've made out pretty well. So between, Julian Bell and Nat Rago being my captains and my veterans, I mean, they have really done such a tremendous job in the last year and just in our preseason on bringing these players, up to speed with what our, philosophy and vision is. And, and Julian only really got to have, a year of it. And then, has been able to adopt some of those things under, her sister, Chamberlain in years past. But, these guys have done such a good job of instilling as many of the philosophies and vision that we have. I'm really, really proud of where we are right now with that.
Yeah. So you mentioned Julian. Julian, to me, is a top 3, maybe top 5 player in the state, and her sister Chamberlain had a hat trick yesterday for the Bryant Bulldogs as a freshman, which is great. Yeah. So I love seeing the alumni do so well at the college level. So Christine, you had a 2-game set with Sohegan, 15-7, then 10-8. How did you handle the quick turnaround to play them again, as far as adjustments, watching film?
We took a look at, what their threats were, and we had to, kind of take a look at doing a better job at containing them. And they were pretty good about, trying to get a couple more of their players that weren't involved in that first matchup and the second matchup. And even, in that first game, we talked a lot about us beating ourselves, a lot of mental errors. Like I said, that first game going out, we were like, the adrenaline was way out of control, and us not being able to control the tempo of the game. And I mean, the scores aren't really a good indication of how either game went. So it was just a matter of making a few adjustments and reading patterns and doing a better job of us being consistent. Like prepping for other teams at this point this year, it's going to be really a tough thing to do because we don't know, what the dynamics look like. We can predict and we can watch some game film, but I think because of the way that, teams are going to be this year, we're going to have better success just focusing on who we are and what we can do to be better as a program.
Yeah, that makes sense for sure. Coach, I know you're busy this morning. We appreciate you carving out some time for us. Again, congratulations on the quick start, and good luck this week against Salem. You got another home coming up against the Blue Devils. But again, thank you, and we look forward to touching base with you again down the road.
No problem. Thanks a lot for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks, Coach.
And again, is Christine Hodgkin, the Bedford, longtime Bedford girls head coach, Bulldogs, with back-to-back wins over Sohegan, 15-7 and 10-8. The final, they've got Salem at home coming up Tuesday, and then on the road at Salem on Thursday.
So it was interesting. We didn't have the time to dive in when she said that, they won 15-7, then 10-8. So the scores would say that the game was closer the second time, but listening to Coach, she made it sound like this game 2 was even more in control than the first game. So it was interesting, the dynamic of that. But the other takeaway from that was she only has 2 returning starters. So,
right. So that was my next question to you: is how, as a coach, do you do anything differently based on the personnel, the makeup, if you have a younger group versus a senior laden group?
Yeah. Well, when she mentioned the young talent, she has 3. I don't want to. There's probably other players out there, but she has 3 outstanding future D1 players, and freshman Olivia Matthews, whose dad is the football coach at Bedford, Reagan O'Brien, who's a sophomore, and Sydney Grogan, who's on the Bedford State Championship basketball team, is a terrific. So there's 3 players that are just ready to jump in and excel at the Division I level. So they have talent, and Julian, who we talked about, who's one of the top players in the state. So they have the talent. To me, they're the second pick with Pinkerton. Pinkerton and Bedford are going to both be in contention with BG. BG's loaded. BG has.
Is that the top tier there, BG?
Yeah, BG 1, and then Bedford, Pinkerton. All 3
somewhere in there.
Yeah, Leslie Y being her first year coaching, but Christine and Rob, 2 outstanding coaches that are going to have to coach them up in order to stay in the game and competitive with BG. Which in one game anything can happen, but BG from top to bottom is just loaded with Riley Bouvier, Lindsay Holt, Katie Campbell, 3 of the top. Right there, you Holy Cross, Stanford, and Virginia commits that on one field. But then they have a bunch more. Their defense is loaded. Good in goal with McKenna Reiki. So they're going to be. It's going to be tough for teams to play with BG. And but if anyone can do it, Christine at Bedford and Rob Daziel at Pinkerton can certainly.
And unfortunately, the sneak peek preview between BG and Pinkerton was supposed to take place tomorrow. That game has been rescheduled on the girls' side to May the 5th due to a positive test for COVID-19. So unfortunately, we're going to have to wait to see BG play Pinkerton as potentially a championship preview. But wouldn't surprise me, as you said, if Bedford, given Coach Hodgson, given her ability, her track record to really piece this thing together with some raw athletes and raw talent in the mix, a hardworking young group. Wouldn't surprise me at all if they were one of the last teams standing.
No, they've been this close for so many times. And Christine gets the most out of her players. She's a great guest on the show. She communicates things so well. And I think she does the same with her players. So, it's for all our girls fans out there. Yes, we're going to be FNL will be doing girls games. We're going to be opening up on Monday night, which would have been a great
great way to kick it off.
Great way to kick it off.
We'll be there again. They're going to play again. So that game rescheduled for May the 5th. But we thank Coach Hodgson for coming on. Switch gears again, Coach, with an eye on the NCAA scene. I guess we'll start with your son, Brian, down at North Carolina. Got a big win up in Syracuse, but kind of break down the NCAA scene here. Of course, for those that don't know, that action's been going on for quite a while, since February.
Yeah, so I think about where we are in our Beals Insurance Studios. So we had Michael Kiley on. So the closest person to the studio is Coach Gaudreau at Pinkerton. He lives like right over 101 right there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it's going to be easy to get Coach Gaudreau.
Yeah, we'll get him down here.
He does coach. He coaches some Tomahawk team. He has 3 boys that play, so they're on Sundays.
I didn't realize he lived in Bedford. Okay.
He lives in Bedford, yes. Yep. His wife, Kate, is on faculty at Bedford High School, so there's 3 boys in the program. So he's easy to get here. But so when you talk about North Carolina, a mile to the north is where Brian Cameron, and a mile to the south is Zach Tucci. So they both had big impacts on the game yesterday. Brian had a behind-the-back goal in the Carrier Dome, which is something he'll always remember. And then Zach Tucci had a goal, facing off. So 2 Bedford kids on the big stage, at Syracuse was great to see. So they took apart Syracuse 21-9 yesterday. So this year, there is, is there an asterisk? Yes, because there's no Ivy teams, in the mix this year. Because you had Princeton, you had Cornell, and Yale, who I'm probably missing somebody, but Brown, certainly. But those 3 teams are not in the equation. But this is the most talented ACC teams ever. I mean, these games, other than this game, most games have been there's been like 7 one-goal games in the ACC. Because of the 5th years, the talent in the ACC is just incredible.
Seems like kind of the power dynamic of the last few years is starting to shift slowly but surely away from the Ivy and towards the ACC. Is that fair to say?
It was shifting away from the ACC. Like there was more parity out there. But now with the 5th years, that Carolina had 4 5th years come back. Virginia had 3, and then they picked up Charlie Bertrand, who was the D2 Player of the Year. Syracuse had their guys come back, and Notre Dame had picked up they had guys come back for a 5th year, and they picked up 4 or 5 transfers. So they're a graduate senior heavy, and you can't tell because the Big Ten is only playing the Big Ten. So you can't. I mean, for the most part,
tough to gauge.
There's no comparison. For the most part, Maryland is very good and Rutgers is very good. But other than that, the Big Ten is down. ACC has 4 teams that are in the top 5 with Duke, Notre Dame, Virginia, and North Carolina. Right. So it's going to be an exciting finish. And then we've had some. Locally at the Division II levels, Franklin Pierce has gotten games in. They're playing, which is great. But St. Anselm, right around the corner, is a top. They legitimately have a chance to compete for a national championship. So Coach Schiamano, we've had on the show, a friend, as you like to say, a friend of the program.
Sure.
They beat Franklin Pierce yesterday, but they're a team that's a top 10, maybe top 5 team with a chance. Because Lemoyne, who is the perennial favorite, beat Bentley in overtime. So St. Anselm is certainly in the mix.
And that's a program that had gotten visually better, markedly better, I think, year in and year out.
He's done an outstanding job. We've had a lot of local players. We got Merrimack players. We had Drew Haley have a hat trick for Merrimack yesterday. Merrimack is D1 for their 2nd year, so they're struggling a little bit. UMass Lowell, we have a ton of local New Hampshire Tomahawk players and playing there. Bryant is the team that had Mason Druin, Ben Ablady, and Nate Liberty all stepping in as starters for freshmen. And Bryant was a top 20 team, but they've been hit hard with postponements and layoffs, and there's just they can't seem to get rolling down there.
Right, which is tough for everybody for sure. Yeah. All right, let's, as we wind down here, take a look at our upcoming schedule. Tuesday we will be in Wyndham. Not quite sure on the game time there. It's either a 4 o'clock Eastern start or 5 o'clock. Trying to confirm that, but it's either 4 or 5 Tuesday afternoon. It's a big D2 matchup on the boys' side. Winnicott at Wyndham. We haven't touched base on either of those two teams, but those are up-and-coming programs that are expected to be competitive for sure in D2 this season.
Yeah, see, Wyndham, you don't know like who was out or who's not playing, but I had Wyndham. Division II is it was Derryfield's to win the last few years. They were just so loaded.
3 straight championships.
And, seeing
them,
our varsity B teams played them on Thursday, and they're very well coached, very high skilled, but they're just not as athletic as they've been. Where you have an HB team, Dom St. Laurent, who was a Bishop Girton
goaltender, right?
2-time cap. No, he was a midfielder. Went to UMass.
Yep.
Did his 5th
That's
year
right.
at Franklin Pierce. He was a 2-time great captain, one of the best captains we've ever had. Is at the helm at Hollis Brookline, and they have some athletes. So they might not have the skill level of Derryfield, but they got some athletes. I'm a little bit concerned about their scores versus Campbell. They had 2 tight games versus Campbell, but Campbell has, and I should know the name, but Campbell has the athletic director at Campbell. Played lacrosse at Syracuse, and he's the head coach there. So he's obviously doing a good job because they stayed in competitive games with Hollis Brookline. So you have in Division II, you got Derryfield, obviously. They have Chaz Dean and Ryan Etzo. Wyndham has, you would think, one of the top players, Nate Levine, and heard his players playing. He's going to Syracuse, commit to Syracuse. Heard he's playing some attack there. I mean, as a midi, he's an athlete in the likes of John Sullivan, Spencer Clark, and Riley Lawhorn. He's just a different level athlete that could dominate that with Alex Ryan. So I was very surprised to see Portsmouth beat Wyndham twice, not once but twice. So who do you have on Tuesday? You have Wyndham and
Winnicott.
Wyndham and Winnicott. So Winnicott, I don't really know much about. Their scores from
they're typically a blue collar, grab your lunch pail, we're going to beat you up type of team, right?
Yeah. So there was an interesting one. They beat Timberlane 13-3. 2 days later, come back and beat them in triple overtime. So
we've seen that kind of weird dynamic here early.
The Bedford Concord one. The Londonderry BG kind of scores were similar. The Exeter South scores were similar. So you're going to get some of that. And then who else do we have in Division II? Yeah.
Well, if we keep breaking down D2, give me a little bit more about Portsmouth because they're traditionally tough to beat and one of the last teams standing.
They're very well coached. They have a great feeder program out there. Very well coached. I don't know too much of the personnel, but I think you're going to have some parity with those 5 teams. Bill Lawson is back coaching. He was the longtime Central coach. He's at Goffstown. I mean, he'll get them playing. They have a good face-off. A few good face-off players, but they just don't have the depth. I don't think to compete with the likes of them. And then in Division III, you got Campbell, Hopkinton, Trinity, Laconia, Guilford. Campbell, you got Jack Norrie, Brendan Bosky. They have some good players, and obviously they've a really good, strong showing against a strong. I mean, I think it's the best Hollis Brookline team in a few years, in a while.
They won the championship over Derryfield. What year was that, 15?
Could be a 14, 15.
14 or 15, I remember that.
14 range.
But they've been kind of quiet since.
Yes.
And you sense a resurgency for sure. And then locally, give me something on Trinity because they've seemingly have been considered one of the contenders in Division III. That's a program that's had its ups and downs, and it seems like it's back on the upswing.
Yeah, I don't know much about player personnel from Trinity, but they seem to be the hot pick in that division. Where Hopkinton has been the perennial
traditionally, or at least recently, yeah.
So Trinity is their scores were not old because Pelham's down a little bit this year. Pelham's been, Russ Moyer, who's a friend of the program, 603 Lax. He had that youth program going for years, and he kind of took a step back, and you saw their program drop off a little bit. So I'm just pulling up the scores so Trinity beat Pelham twice, if I remember. So I think that so there's a lot. There's no clear favorite there. You have Division II, you got 5 teams. Division III, you got 5 or 6 teams. Probably some teams. There's so many teams in Division II, we might be missing a few. And then you have down to the girls' side. We talked about BG, Bedford,
D1
with Nat Rago, Julian Bell, and Pinkerton just loaded. With talent. Maybe not last year would have been Pinkerton's year. Last year would have been
a lot of seniors.
Lauren
right?
Lasoskis, who's doing well. She had a goal and assist versus Georgetown on Thursday. So she's playing. Georgetown's a top 20
That's
program.
Jake's sister.
Jake's sister, yes.
Yep.
And Pinkerton was primed. It would have been they were primed to have a year last year, but they'll still be in the mix. Sohegan, I think, is the 4th. Exeter, Londonderry, South. Division II, Portsmouth played Pinkerton really tough. So that could be, so, Portsmouth is very good with Hollis, Brookline, Wyndham, Winnicott, and Hanover in Division II. Division III girls, I think it's the three team. You have Bow, Derryfield, and Hopkinton. Same, like all, competitive.
Yep.
But just there's
good
just
programs.
There's drop off. There's drop off everywhere. So.
And plus, to Christine's point, perhaps it's more important this year, given the unusual circumstance of not having a season last year, to more or less focus on your own group, see how the growth, monitor the growth of your own players, worry about your own teams, as opposing to the scouting reports and worrying about the opponent. Is that something you subscribe to as well?
I 100%. Coach Holly mentioned it on the call that I'm not a big film guy. I don't watch a lot of film, but it's easy now with with YouTube.
Sure, and technology in general,
and pop it on. But yeah, we play to our strengths. That's what we do. We go out and do what we do best, and that's always what we want to do. Sometimes when you're the underdog and you have to kind of scout a little more and
figure out an angle.
So, you gotta, I think we're always going to be the most talented team on the field. But you got to play tough and you got to play hard. That's what we're asking for from our guys this year. And we play Pinkerton twice this week. We might not see them again. You just don't know with the tournament format. You just don't know how it's going to shake out.
Well, let's close the show on that note. Thursday we will be in Derry for BG at Pinkerton. Again, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel to make sure that one is in your lap. That's a 5:30 start. Again, it'll be on live on FNLNH Media on YouTube. But give me a little preview, Coach, of what you expect there. It's the rematch. You play for the first time Tuesday. We'll have the broadcast coming your way on Thursday in Derry.
Yeah, so Coach Gaudreau is a great coach. I mean, he's a high-level coach where it's not going to be –
with big shoes to fill, obviously.
Yeah, so he's in a spot where – I mean, it's going to be more lacrosse based instead of smack you in the mouth, type mentality, which they'll still always have because that's Derry. They're tough. They're tough kids, tough players. But he's going to take them to another level from a lacrosse standpoint. He's just a very high level coach, teaching the technical part of the game. He doesn't have. There were guys, Roy Tereski for years with the Derry program and Marty Ogier with the Hampstead program that were just feeding players. So that's why you're hearing that Pinkerton's going to be down a little bit because they don't have the players that have been coming in for years, but they're still very good because they have Hunter Druin. When you talk about Dawson Clark, Spencer Clark, Michael Kiley, Hunter Druin's right in that mix. Connor Holly, those are the top offensive guys. So their whole team, I shouldn't say the whole
Druin
team,
was a standout as a sophomore, wasn't he?
Yes, he's another Colgate commit. He's committed to Colgate, hockey player, lefty. His brother Mason is a freshman doing very well at Pinkerton. So he's the key is containing him because he can go off and have a 5-goal game, which I think I read a box score or a summary of the first game. I know he had 5 goals and 5 assists against Salem. I don't know how the second game went, but he's the guy that their offense goes around. So we're fortunate we have some poles that can match up with him. We're going to have to try to do the best we can to slow him down. Then they have a midi, Riley Spellman, who is a junior. Played some as a freshman, actually played a lot as a freshman. So he's their key in the middle. They have a face-off kid who was injured over the summer, Cole Frank, who's a freshman, who's a special player. I mean, he's a special player. He's a future. He's kind of trains with Nate LaLiberty. Not as big as Nate, but he's very, very good. So when he comes back, we'll determine how well they are. They do at the face-off X. They got Michael Uber at the midfield, and then defensively they have. I think that they have Cam Savastano. They have a few goalies that are in the mix, so they're all kind of very good.
Right.
I don't think there's one guy out there that has the job. And then they have Declan Turner on defense, Cam Leeds, Jonathan Muncie. I'm probably missing a few guys because I haven't seen them. I didn't.
Well, you just rattled off half the team.
So Friday night, so North Carolina played from 3 to 5, and then the Bedford game, Bedford at Pinkerton at 5. So I just wasn't gonna be able to make it down in time. So I haven't seen them, but. I think in Coach Gaudreau's first year, I mean, he wasn't, so I don't know what to expect exactly, but I know that they'll be fundamentally.
Well, they came out of the gate hot. I mean, Salem, say what you will, but blowout wins there, 17-2, 17-1, and then a convincing 12-6 win over Bedford. That's the Astros' 3-0 start. So, I don't know. I mean, people say that they're down. I have yet to see anything to believe that. frankly. And I think this will be a big gauge for both of your teams, Pinkerton and BG. At the end of the week, I think we'll have a better idea of where things are exactly in the D1 landscape. Coach, is this your favorite time of year here?
Oh, this is great.
Where it's just lacrosse round the clock all the time?
So it leads from March Madness, which I love.
Yeah.
And then, then the college games are,
and not to mention a high school championship for you guys at BG, with you a part of that staff. That must have been something extra special as well.
It was.
Talking about March Madness.
Yeah, no, I'm a big basketball fan. Love to watch it. I coach. I was a basketball player growing up, so I use coaching, as Ben could tell you. I use basketball principles really on defense and in transition. And I was a lot
of crossover between the two sports.
So much crossover. That's why you see John Sullivan excelling so well as a defensive player. He was a defensive, shutdown. He was our shutdown guy. He had to take Curtis Harris. He had to take him. Cox from Londonderry, and then he drew. Was it Marinelli or
Morelli?
Morelli,
He
held each one of them to single digits. So I coached the defense in basketball. So I was excited that Coach Fisher, when Coach Fisher, he was my long time, volunteer, whatever I needed, JV coach, varsity volunteer, whatever. So when Coach Matt Reagan had to step away due to family issues 2 weeks before the season, I volunteered to John. I'd step in and help. It was a great season this run. Certainly, we played more basketball games this year than the year before. I mean, the school realizes it. Athletic directors throughout the state realize how important it is for the kids to play, and so that was.
I think
good.
You were the only team in D1 to play a full schedule, I believe.
Yeah, we didn't.
Regular season.
We didn't lose any games on ourselves. We had the Nationals got delayed, so we had them the first week. But then, just like that, we were playing Bedford and Goffstown as fill-ins, and then Pinkerton was shut down for a little bit, and then we got Exeter on the schedule twice. Right. So it was exciting. So lacrosse, as we talked about earlier, you don't have that same flexibility to fill in. Like basketball, you can have there's so many teams and parity. Where for our D to pick up the phone and call North, that's not necessarily going to be a great game. Or to play a Division II team like we played Hollis, it's just
it's a challenge for sure.
It's definitely a challenge, and that's what I think all the top teams are certainly going to face.
Well, Coach, we appreciate you coming down. We'll see you next week. We wish you luck. Not only on Tuesday, but we'll see you on the field Thursday. And I'm looking forward to calling that game, I'll tell you that. BG at Pinkerton Thursday again. Tuesday will be in Wyndham as the Jaguars host Winnicott. That's all on the way this week. We want to thank our guests, Jerry Hawley of Exeter, for giving us a call. Roger Sampson, same thing, from Londonderry. And a treat for us to have Michael Kiley of BG, the New Hampshire Tomahawks Player of the Week, come down and join us live here in studio. And Christine Hodgson carving out some time for us this morning to give us the lowdown on the girls' side of things. The Bedford head coach joining us. We appreciate that. Coach, any final words before we say goodbye?
Looking forward to your broadcast with Wyndham. Wyndham's a good team. Nate Levine, Alex Ryan, but excited to see you guys Thursday. It definitely adds to the hype of the game. It's incredible, the technology and the product that you're putting out there this season. It's great for the fans.
It's all Steve Beals for sure. Our executive producer making that happen, and the producer behind the chair there, behind the screen, the man behind the curtain, is Ben Beals, always keeping it top notch. My name is Nick Anastas for Chris Cameron, saying so long. We'll see you next week, 9 o'clock. This has been the FNLNH Lacrosse Show, presented by the New Hampshire Tomahawks.